How much rest should you be taking between sets in the gym? A simple look at this chart is going to give you all the answers, except when it doesn't. So before answering how much rest you need as an individual, let's answer the question why you should take different rests depending on your training goals anyway. Our bodies adapt to specific stress, not how hard a workout feels. If you want to get stronger, you have to lift heavy weights. If you want to get faster, you need to move fast. For better endurance, you need enough volume to challenge your aerobic system. The problem is fatigue can interfere with all of those. If you're trying to build strength, but fatigue forces you to use less weight, the set may feel harder, but the strength stimulus is actually less. If you're trying to build speed, but you're exhausted and moving slower every rep, you're no longer training speed as effectively. Hard doesn't automatically mean productive. We need enough recovery to maintain the type of output that we're actually trying to improve. With this conceptual framework, we can at least see why the chart makes sense on average for different types of training. It's a reasonable starting point, but doesn't take into individual differences or individual constraints such as time to train. Let's go into a few factors that are going to change your rest times from something like a simple Google search might give you. Then I'll give you my favorite way to cut gym time down without sacrificing results. The most important factor for most people is rarely talked about, and that's how much time you actually have to train with. High-level athletes take all the time you need to maximize performance. However, if you are working out 3 to 4 times a week for an hour amidst a busy schedule, you aren't going to see optimal results taking 5 minutes between sets of squats. Instead, a little bit less rest is going to lead to slightly decreased capacity in any one exercise. But overall, the training stress across months and years is far greater. You just can't spend that much of your gym time resting. The bigger and stronger you are will also lead to needing more rest between sets. Here are 2 athletes I am currently training. One is 10 years old and weighs 65 pounds. The other is an 18-year-old who weighs 215 pounds and has a full scholarship to wrestle for the University of Buffalo. They can both do heavy sets relative to them and need vastly different recovery times. It would make no sense for 65-pound Josh to rest 3 to 5 minutes for strength training when he's fully recovered in 30 seconds. Heck, if you had someone insanely big and strong like squatting 600 pounds for sets of 5, they might need upwards of 10 minutes rest between sets. If you are decently advanced, the charts are good guidelines. Most beginners and intermediates need significantly less rest, and most extremely advanced athletes need significantly more rest. Thirdly, our cardiovascular conditioning and body fat play a big role, especially in higher rep sets. The better cardiovascular shape you're in, the faster you will recover. Also, if you carry excessive body fat versus being pretty lean, you're going to recover slower between sets. So if you're a marathon runner who strength trains twice a week, 5 minutes is probably too long, especially because you're also likely smaller and weaker, versus say a 310-pound man who has recently started exercising. With some of those base considerations in place, let's concretize this so you can actually find your optimal rest periods instead of me just giving general conceptualizations. If you have all the time in the world and training is your primary focus, you take as much rest as you need to feel like your cardiovascular system is fully recovered, the muscles you are training feel ready to go again, and your nervous system feels ready to fire hard again. Use the chart as a starting point, then experiment adjusting a little up or down based on how quickly you feel recovered. Now, if you have a more traditional schedule, like maybe you get 1 hour, 3 to 4 days a week to lift, the following recommendations will be key. Use supersets for just about everything. We have a full video on those, so make sure you check that out. But basically, this is going to help you maximize the total productive work that you can do in a tightened schedule. I will give you an example and then show you how to adjust it whether you are training for strength, hypertrophy, or more general conditioning. Your upper body day's first superset is bench press, 5 sets, superset with pull-ups, 5 sets. If I'm training for strength, I would do between 3 and 5 reps per set and then take between a minute and a minute and a half rest between exercises. So you bench 3 reps, take a minute to a minute and a half rest, do 3 reps of the pull-up, then take your rest again and repeat. This allows more than 3 minutes rest between doing the same exercise. But you're not resting that whole time because some of that space is spent doing another major movement. This is how I train most of the time and also how I train most of the athletes I work with. Then just adjust slightly based on what we talked about. If you're a beginner or smaller and less muscular, then you can take less rest. Maybe start with 30 to 45 seconds between sets. For hypertrophy, I would do a little higher reps in each set, maybe in the 10 to 15 rep range, and shrink the rest period down a little bit to between 30 seconds and 1 minute. Again, depending on your size and strength level. For muscular endurance or trying to get in some more cardio, keep to higher reps, between 10 and 15 plus, and keep the rest either just the transition between exercises up to maybe 30 seconds. Shift the rest depending on your goals. Less rest is going to give you more of an endurance stimulus, and more rest is going to allow for heavier weights and allow for more strength or muscle building stimulus. From here, continue experimenting slightly, as bigger compound lifts need longer rest than smaller muscle groups. The bench and pull-ups we discussed would need more rest than a bicep curl with a tricep extension. Use the information here and your experience to make the best decisions and adjustments for yourself. Although when in doubt, if performance is dropping quickly between sets, then you're not resting enough. And if you just feel bored half the time, you're probably resting too much. If you're still unsure, leave me a comment about your situation and I will be happy to help you figure out a plan. Like always, just keep trying to improve. You're not going to get it perfect the first time, but that's what makes fitness so great. It's an adventure.